Who should start for Syracuse in 2025 at quarterback? Plus, what should the expectation for said quarterback be?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, on today's show, we are talking all things quarterbacks, all right? Who should start for Syracuse in 2025? And before we get to all of that, leave a comment in the comment section below your thoughts on who should be Syracuse's starting quarterback in 2025, because we're going to talk about the 5 potential starters, in my opinion. Rickie Collins, Jakhari Williams, Luke Carney, Rich Belin, and Michael Johnson Jr. That's right. Plus, later on in the podcast, Ohio State, they won the national championship. Obviously, there is a connection between Ohio State and Syracuse from 2024. So we'll talk all about it later on in the podcast. Before we get to everything, though, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So I want to start off this podcast talking about the expectations of all the quarterbacks, okay? And let's start by saying this. No matter who is under center for the Orange in 2025, opening day against Tennessee in Atlanta, yeah, that's right, going to be a big-time opener for Syracuse next year. No matter who it is, they, in my opinion, will not enter with the same expectations that Kyle McCord had. Kyle McCord came from Ohio State, was a starter for Ohio State in 2023, put up really good numbers there, and there was a lot of hype for him. And he actually exceeded those expectations, I might add. Whoever is starting for the Orange in 2025 on opening day, ladies and gentlemen, that quarterback will be making their first ever collegiate start at quarterback. That's right. No matter who it is, of the 5 that I'm going to talk about here, they're going to be making their first start. So going into it, the expectation is not the same necessarily as Kyle McCord. But let's talk about the 2 likely favorites, in my opinion, to start in 2025. Let's throw over Rickie Collins, okay? He's the LSU transfer from this offseason with 3 years of eligibility. He was a high-end 4-star recruit in 2023, but he could never crack the lineup at LSU. In 2023, they had a kid named Jaden Daniels. In case you haven't heard of Jaden Daniels, he ended up becoming the number 2 pick in the NFL draft to the Washington Commanders. And by the way, he's playing this Sunday for the right to go to the Super Bowl as a rookie quarterback. He's pretty good, right? He's pretty good. Also won the Heisman Trophy too. You might have heard of Jaden Daniels. And also in 2024, Garrett Nussmeier won the starting job. And in case you haven't heard of Garrett Nussmeier, he's actually the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy in 2025. So it was a really competitive quarterback room. And Rickie Collins, he was the odd man out. He could not get into that starting lineup. So I would say, though, given his pedigree, he is the favorite to start. And also, he should have the highest expectation of all the possible starting quarterbacks. I'm going to give you guys 2 reasons why. Number one, he's been in college for 2 years. And so while he hasn't played a whole lot in those 2 years, he's only attempted 7 career passes, he does have experience of being in college, which is different than high school. The weight training's different. The practice schedule is different. The game speed's completely different. The access you have in college compared to high school is completely different. Just like if you're fortunate enough in college to make the NFL, everything is completely different once again. So Rickie Collins at least has been in college for 2 years and understands the environment of being in college for 2 years. And here's what Jaden Daniels had to say about Rickie Collins, and this was back in 2023. I'm going to read you guys the quote, okay? He said, I treat him like my little brother. Just seeing him be able to grow day in and day out, coming in as a true freshman, trying to just learn how to live on his own, even though he's from Baton Rouge. But it's different living on your own, just how to maneuver and how to treat things professionally. It's how tight we are. So Jaden Daniels seems to be pretty high on a guy like Rickie Collins. That should count for something, right? And number two, out of all the quarterbacks that we are going to talk about today, he's got the highest pedigree of all of them. He was a high-end 4-star recruit in 2023. He committed to LSU. That's pretty big time. And so we'll see if he can live up to that hype potentially in 2025. But he's got the highest pedigree out of everyone. And if you look at his high school scouting report, it says that he's got all the tools to be a great quarterback, but it just has to work on his footwork. So we'll see how he progresses. But in my opinion, if Rickie Collins is the starter, that is the guy that we should have the highest expectations for in 2025. Now let's go over Jakhari Williams. Jakhari Williams, another intriguing quarterback prospect. He is a 2024 Syracuse 3-star recruit. So this is not a transfer. This is a Syracuse recruit from 2024. He did not earn the backup job from last season. That was actually Michael Johnson Jr. But remember, Jakhari Williams was a true freshman. High school scouting report on him is that he is a good athlete, but needs to improve his accuracy. He can easily make the impressive plays, but the analogy, or not the analogy, but what I will tell you is you can make the impressive plays, but can you complete the 5-yard slant? One thing that made Kyle McCord super impressive in 2024 was he rarely missed on a quote-unquote easy pass. When Jackson Meeks was running over the middle for a 5-yard slant, that ball was in his chest. It was right on target pretty much every single time from Kyle McCord. And it's essential for quarterbacks to be able to hit that type of play. I'm not saying Jakhari Williams can't, but based on that scouting report, look, it's great and all if you can run around and make all these plays, but can you complete the 5-yard slant? Can you complete the 5-yard out? Can you be accurate, right? So that's the key with a guy like Jakhari Williams. And the good thing about Jakhari Williams is this. He was with Syracuse last season. And by all accounts, barring a last-minute coaching change, the Orange are going to have the same offensive coordinator from 2024 into 2025 in Jeff Nixon. So Jakhari Williams, he's got the upper hand on even Rickie Collins, on even Luke Carney, Rich Belin. He's got the upper hand in the sense that he was with the program last year. He was with the offense last year. He knows the system already. He doesn't have to learn it, unlike the other three that I just mentioned. So that's what Jakhari Williams has going for him. And as far as his expectation relative to Rickie Collins, it's tricky because there's two ways you can look at it if Jakhari Williams ends up beating out Rickie Collins in the spring and in fall camp. There's the optimistic way of looking at it, which is that they're both really good and Jakhari Williams just edged him out. Or there's the other way of looking at it, and we won't know this until later on. Maybe Rickie Collins wasn't as good. And we'll find out. But overall, I would say the two favorites to start for Syracuse football are Rickie Collins and Jakhari Williams. And both have pretty similar expectations if they were to start, in my mind. Leave a comment in the comments section below your thoughts on Rickie Collins and Jakhari Williams and who you think should start of those two right now. Now, coming up, we know this from Fran Brown. He's going to play the best. And you know what that means? A true freshman quarterback could be seeing the field in 2025. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jackson Holzer. We're talking all things quarterbacks here on the Locked On Syracuse Podcast. We just went over Rickie Collins and Jakhari Williams. Now let's talk about a couple of true freshmen, and then later on, Michael Johnson Jr. Let's go over Luke Carney, shall we? Luke Carney, he's got a lot of hype, right? 2025 Syracuse 3-star commit from Texas, 6'2", 205 pounds. That's what he's listed over at 24/7 Sports. And if we assume that that listing is accurate, he's got a good build for a quarterback, not just for college, but also for the NFL. 6'2", 205 pounds is a very solid build for a quarterback. Now, a lot of the hype is coming from the fact that Locked On recruiting expert Brian Smith, he was on the podcast over the summer last year when Luke Carney had already committed to Syracuse. And he said that if Luke Carney had played at a bigger school in Texas, he would be rated way higher than where he is listed right now, which is a 3-star recruit. It just goes to show you that the ratings are not always perfect. They are not always accurate, right? Sometimes where you play, it certainly matters in the ratings. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just how the system is. By all accounts, Luke Carney is a really, really good athlete. This is someone who, down the stretch in his high school senior season, en route to a national championship, or not a national championship, a state championship, I should say, he was playing both offense and defense. So he's a really good athlete, and he's also accurate. 76% completion rate in 2024, 80% completion rate in 2023. And look, I get the hype for Luke Carney. I completely understand it, and I'm very excited for Luke Carney as well. Don't get me wrong. But it takes time for these true freshmen, all right? Very rarely do true freshmen actually start at quarterback in college football. It does happen, and I will cite some examples for you, but rarely do they actually play. Most of the time, they end up redshirting. And guess what? It works out quite well when they redshirt as well. But Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence having a tremendous amount of success as true freshmen, those are the outliers, all right? Those were number 1 draft picks in the NFL draft. Let's talk about this season with some true freshman quarterbacks. I mean, you had Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. You had DJ Lagway at Florida. Both of them, I would say, had relatively good years. But if you actually look at them statistically, neither of them lit the world on fire. They certainly have a lot of hype, and I'm not saying that neither are going to be bad or anything. I'm just trying to tell you that they flashed. They certainly look like they're going to be good, but it takes time for true freshmen. So if and when Luke Carney does get a chance to play in 2025, do I have high expectations for him going forward with the program? Absolutely. I think he could be terrific for Syracuse football. But for 2025, all I am saying is that if and when he gets a chance to start, I wouldn't necessarily expect him to throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns right off the bat. That's all I'm going to say on Luke Carney, but certainly he's got a lot of hype, and I hope that Luke Carney can become the next great quarterback of Syracuse football. As far as the other true freshman quarterback in Syracuse's class, because I think we forget, because of all the hype with Luke Carney, we forget that there is another quarterback commit in 2025, and that's Rich Belin. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's from New York. So here's the thing with Rich Belin. He doesn't have the same build. Only 6 foot, 190 pounds. That's not really that big. So I would hope that he can put on a little bit of weight over there if he wants to be able to take a beating, or if so he can take a beating, so to speak. He's also rated a little bit lower than Luke Carney. And based on his high school numbers, he's also someone that can make a lot of plays, but completion percentage was 57% in 2024. So obviously this is not it doesn't seem like he's as seasoned as a guy like Luke Carney right off the bat. But here's the thing. This is what's fascinating about this exercise. We don't know who's going to start in 2025. And we know this. Fran Brown's going to play the best. He's going to play who he thinks is the best guy. He's not afraid to play a true freshman. And who knows, maybe Rich Belin does end up winning the quarterback job. I don't think he will, but maybe he does. That's what's fun about this exercise and the expectations. But overall, I would say with the true freshmen, regardless of who maybe gets their chance to play in 2025, to just ease up on the expectations for 2025. Now, 2026 beyond, we can talk all about it. But for 2025, true freshmen, it takes time for these quarterbacks to just adjust to the speed and the weight training and the atmosphere. Everything's different. So let's just cool it a little bit on that, okay? As far as the final possible quarterback, in my opinion, who has a chance to start in 2025, it's Michael Johnson Jr. Michael Johnson Jr. is an FAU transfer from last season, and he's entering his final year of college eligibility. And he did see limited action in 2024, very limited. He threw only 4 passes this past season. It came against Holy Cross. So not much on Michael Johnson, but he was the backup quarterback in the event that something happened to Kyle McCord. Thank goodness nothing happened to Kyle McCord throughout the season. And now I've been leaving him out of a lot of the quarterback discussion this entire offseason. And maybe that's unfair because, hey, he was the backup this past year, and who knows? Again, Fran Brown's going to play the best. So if Michael Johnson Jr. is the best in the spring and in the fall, maybe he ends up being the starter for 2025. Having said that, I think it's in Syracuse's best interest, and I think this is what they want to do. They want to go younger at the quarterback position in 2025. So that's why I don't think Michael Johnson Jr. is going to start next season. Of the 5 players that we have talked about, Rickie Collins, Jakhari Williams, Luke Carney, Rich Belin, Michael Johnson Jr., 4 of them are going to be redshirt sophomores or lower next season. Michael Johnson Jr. is the only upperclassman of those players. And I think Syracuse football wants to find out who of their young quarterbacks is going to emerge. Because they got 4 tries for someone to emerge in 2025. And if that young quarterback does emerge in 2025, I got good news for you, ladies and gentlemen. They all have plenty of eligibility, so they would all have the chance, if they decide, obviously, not to leave in the portal. You can never discount that. But they would all have the chance to be the starter again in 2026. So you could be looking at a multi-year quarterback solution of those 4 players. But if you go with Michael Johnson Jr., what are we talking about in 2026? Do we go with an in-house option? Rickie Collins, Luke Carney, Jakhari Williams, Rich Belin, or do we go in the portal again? Right? So I think Syracuse would want to find out who is going to emerge of those 4 quarterbacks. So yes, I guess it's possible Michael Johnson Jr. can start. It is in 2025, but I don't see it happening because it's really not in their best interest to play him. And before you come back at me and say, well, they wanted Kyle McCord back. Yes, of course, they wanted Kyle McCord back. Of course they did, because he is the exception, right? If you have a chance to get him back, even for one more year, you take it and you wait for 2026 with a young quarterback. For Michael Johnson, I'm not so sure. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below on Syracuse's quarterback room in 2025, because I'd love to hear from you and who you think should start for the Orange next season. Because coming up, we're not going to be talking about the quarterbacks. We're going to be talking a little bit about the national championship game, and a congratulations to Ohio State. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. This message is brought to you by Prizepicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prizepicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prizepicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, with Prizepicks Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prizepicks. Prizepicks, run your game. The 2024 college football season is officially over. The final game was played between Ohio State and Notre Dame, and Ohio State wins the national championship 34-23, and I want to congratulate Ohio State on their national championship victory. They were clearly the best team in college football this season, and it was a well-deserved national championship for Ryan Day and the Ohio State program. Now, it's no secret that Ohio State and Syracuse shared a special connection in 2024, and that is Kyle McCord. We all know this, right? Ohio State, after 2023, they didn't really want Kyle McCord anymore. They weren't going to guarantee him the starting role in 2024. So Kyle McCord ends up entering the portal. He goes to Syracuse. Ohio State, they also go in the portal looking for a quarterback, and they get Will Howard. And the rest is history, right? And at the end of the day, both sides took jabs at each other, right? I myself certainly took jabs at Ohio State, particularly after when they lost to Michigan this season. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, both sides ended up being right. Both sides were correct. Kyle McCord, I think it's his words, made the best decision of maybe his life, transferring to Syracuse and rehabilitating his image as one of the best quarterbacks in college football and a legitimate NFL prospect, and leading Syracuse to its best season since 2018. And you can make the argument, because it was also a brand new head coach in Fran Brown, it was the best season for Syracuse in well over 2 decades. Going 10-3, winning the Holiday Bowl against Washington State. Kyle McCord setting all of the records in one season for the Orange. And he's a legitimate NFL prospect now. But for Ohio State, they were right too. And we could play the hypothetical of, well, would they have won with Kyle McCord? Maybe they would have. In fact, I would argue with you they would have won with Kyle McCord this season. But you know what? We're not interested in hypotheticals here. The reality is they had Will Howard. And Will Howard was terrific for Ohio State en route to a national championship. So, yes, Fran Brown should be sending champagne to Ryan Day. Because you know what? Kyle McCord was a big part of Syracuse's success in 2024. But you know what? Ohio State won the national championship, and Will Howard was also really good too. So I think at the end of the day, both sides ended up being happy. So this is, I guess, my way of saying I'm burying the hatchet on this. Congratulations to Ohio State. It was well-deserved. Well done on winning the national championship this season. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below, because I would love to hear from you how you felt when Ohio State won the national championship. I personally, going into the game, I didn't have a preference on who won and who lost. Didn't make a difference to me, Ohio State or Notre Dame, neither of which are really any rivals to Syracuse. So I didn't have a preference. Ohio State was the better team, and they ended up coming up on top. Maybe you did, though. So leave a thought in the comment section below. Coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the future, tomorrow, Syracuse basketball is back in action. They are playing a really good Clemson Tigers team on the road at 7 p.m. Eastern. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Win, lose, or draw, it can't really be a draw. There will be a full post-game reaction podcast here on Locked On Syracuse. Plus, either Thursday morning, like late in the morning, or early in the afternoon, the One More Thing mini podcast for Syracuse and Clemson will come out as well. So be on the lookout for that on Thursday. And then on Friday, we got Poll Friday. It's an early gut feeling, all right, ladies and gentlemen. The question for this week is, what is your early regular season win prediction for Syracuse football in 2025? Yes, I know it's early, but I just wanted to hear what you guys think. So leave a comment actually right now, your thoughts in the comment section below. All right. Your early regular season win prediction for Syracuse football in 2025. And if you're curious about where to vote, well, it's really simple. You can go on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. It's right over there. And also, you can search up Locked On Syracuse on YouTube, and it's in the community section, so you can check it out there as well. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On ACC podcast, Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs. They keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. And folks, if you really like the podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And I will see you all tomorrow post-game for Syracuse and Clemson.